Hello, my fellow extraordinary Americans. My name is Cosmos Dar, and this is Extraordinary America. What is Extraordinary America? Well, you see, America has always been about freedom, opportunity, and the pursuit of happiness. However, most Americans are not free when it comes to the financial front. Most Americans are suffering from financial slavery due to loss of jobs, stagnant wages, inflation, and debt. Wealth and income inequality is the norm now, and the middle class has all but disappeared. So Extraordinary America is about the abolition of financial slavery. It is about the financial freedom of the 99%. It is about the nation of immigrants and the descendant of immigrants restoring the extraordinary within themselves and setting themselves free. The path to financial freedom is through financial education. It is through becoming entrepreneurs and investors on the light side. In this podcast, I interview fellow Americans who fought against the odds. Many of them came from humble beginnings to see how they did it. It is my hope through these interviews that the extraordinary within you shall awaken and that you will abolish financial slavery from your life and realize the American dream. Once again, welcome to Extraordinary America. Welcome back to the show, my fellow extraordinary Americans. For today's guest, we have David Roden. David is a 31-year-old health and fitness entrepreneur and podcaster. He's the co-founder of ALG Accountable Life Group and also runs the ALG podcast. By the time he was 18, he weighed over 400 pounds, was pre-diabetic, and had high blood pressure. He was so depressed and trapped in his own body that he considered ending his life. At 22, he made the decision to transform his life. And 9 years later, David has lost more than 200 pounds and competed in 2 bodybuilding competitions. He has also published a book called Drop the Baggage: From Suicidal Obesity to a Life of Health and Happiness. He has been featured in Men's Health Magazine, Yahoo, Daily Mail, and Insider. David believes that changing your mindset and being accountable to yourself is the key to transforming your life. He's someone that fought against the odds and is truly an extraordinary American, and I'm honored to have him on the show. David, are you there?
Yes, I am here. It's phenomenal to be here, man. Appreciate the invite.
David, it's amazing to have you on the show. I wanted to ask you, so I know that you're an entrepreneur, co-founder, and podcaster. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about yourself, your background, and how you got started and all of that?
Absolutely. So for me, as you said, I'm 31. My upbringing is very unique, to say the least. Especially the number one question you get asked is like, David, how in the world were you 400 pounds by the time you're 18 years old? And the funniest part about it is, I grew up in a medical family. My dad's a cardiologist, and my mom was a nurse, and so I grew up in medicine. I grew up in affluence, and yet it's fascinating how you can get caught in a position where for a lot of circumstances you get caught behind the eight ball, and some of them your fault, some of them not your fault, and you can get, when you get behind the eight ball, you can kind of lose yourself and lose belief in yourself and get caught. And so for me, the number one question I always get asked at an early age is like, how did you get to this weight? It was really simple. My dad worked 80 plus hours a week as a cardiologist, and my mom loved me dearly. And the way she showed love was always saying yes. And so here you are, you're 12, 13, 14 years old. You got basically a blank check credit card, and you got a mom who always says yes. So what does every kid want? Food and video games. That's what did it. And so at an early age, I played a lot of video games. I sat a lot, and it got me behind the eight ball. I was 300 pounds by the time I was like 13, 14, 400 pounds by the time I was 18, pre-diabetic, hypertensive. My dad had me going to all different types of doctors to figure out what was medically wrong with me, but he worked so much, he didn't know. He didn't know how much I was eating. I grew up in a very large house with an indoor basketball court in our house, and I always had friends over, and so there was always a full pantry of food. So you never knew who ate it, but it was usually me. And so that was kind of like early childhood. Felt trapped, tried different diets, whatever. My dad would literally buy me anything I wanted. If I tried the P90X, he bought it for me. Whatever fitness routine, whatever nutritional plan, whatever he could do to help me, He tried. And ultimately, as we come to find out, it does come down to us. Like it really does. Our habits, our beliefs, they really compound to create the person you are, whether you like it or not. And so by the time I was 18, that was that whole bit. Early college, I went to Central Michigan University, where I actually was pre-med. So I was an EMT, which is like so that's one step down from a paramedic, like a general EMT, while being a biomedical science degree in college. And when I was 22, which was like my super senior year, I decided that med school wasn't for me. And so I was in this like transformational period in my life. I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I looked at what medicine was. I didn't like where it was going. I didn't like the sheer hours you had to work and where things were going. And so I was in this like transformational period in my life. And I got connected with some incredible young entrepreneurial kids that were huge into personal development growth. So the first book I read at 22 was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And that book profoundly changed my perspective on like success. Like it really did, because like for me in particular, when it came to obesity and my weight, it's like when you're building a business, or in this case, you're 200 pounds, you're 200 pounds overweight, it seems so astronomically impossible that you just don't really try. Like you try for a few days, you may try for a week, you may try even for a few months, and you may lose 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, but you look at how far you still have to go, and it can really mess you up. And so I just never thought losing 200 pounds was possible. And so I never really tried. And the compound effect is just a simple philosophy of, guess what? It sounds like witchcraft, but if you lose 2 pounds a week for 100 weeks, you lose 200 pounds. And I was like, okay, I can wrap my head around that. And so at 410 pounds, my senior year of college, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be 408 next week. And I said, boom, I hit it. And I was like, all right, next week and be 406. Boom, I hit it. All right, next week and be 404. Boom, I hit it. I literally hyper fixated on 2 pounds a week for the first 50 pounds. And then there was the big aha moment when I stepped on the scale down 50 pounds. I burst into tears, look at myself in the mirror, and I said, David, you're going to change everything about yourself you don't like. And 18 months later, I was down around 200 pounds. And that was the catalyst to, I fell in love with personal development, reading books on neurolinguistic programming, how the mind works, nutrition, fitness. Really dove into that. Full head of steam. Had 2 excess skin removal surgeries at 25 and 26. And then I fell in love with bodybuilding from 26 to 31. And published my first book. That was about 4 years ago now. About 4 years ago now, I published my first book. And that's like the thumbnail sketch to the sequence.
Wow, David. So, most people like who are obese or like who would have like be like 400 pounds, they would just give up hope and they would be like, I can't do this. And then what do you think was the difference between most people and like your mindset that led to this change?
I mean, the number one thing there is simplifying. I mean, I get it. Like when it comes to obesity in particular and weight, it's more visual than most things. But I get what it feels like to feel so trapped in like your body that, like, I'm not kidding you. When I was a senior in high school, I considered ending my life because I just didn't think it was possible to lose 200 pounds. I had no control over my food. I emotionally ate, I binged ate, it was so controlling in me that I didn't think there was a way out. But honestly, it's a multifaceted change. I like to say that because like a part of it was kind of breaking down that big size goal into bite-sized pieces, no pun intended, where you can just kind of like, okay, 2 pounds a week. Let's not worry about 50. Let's not worry about 100. Let's not worry about 200. Let's just focus on 2 pounds a week. That was huge. Number 2, becoming my best cheerleader. That was a big mindset shift for me because I was a perfectionist. I still struggle with that kind of perfection-based perspective. And that makes you trapped because it's either all or none. And as we all know, in entrepreneurship, in fitness, and in health, you find out it's not all or none. Like it never is. But you get caught in that. You think it is. And it's like, all right, it's not worth it. I'm trying so hard I can't keep up. And so why bother? I can't keep going. And you find out that just if you keep making subtle shifts over a decade, massive things can happen. And that's what a lot of people get caught up in, especially with weight loss in particular. But business is no different, where you think about marketing and sales and accounting and this and this and this and this and this. And you're like, how am I going to do it? And it's like, all right, we'll just work on one thing at a time, get it moving, then work on the next and adjust and grow and adapt. And so that was one of the biggest things for me in that cheerleader realm, was just stop trying to be perfect. Like it has nothing to do with perfection. It has to do with consistency and progress. And that massively shifted, because it would be, for nutrition wise, I would eat quote unquote perfect for 2 or 3 days. And then I'd have a bad meal and I'd be like, fuck, it's over. Like, why continue? Like I'm a failure, and boom, it's over. And it's like, that's just not how it works. And everyone thinks, and that's what happens, is like they have their one little failure, their one little mess up, and they're like, oh, it's over. That's it. Put it in the cards. And like being able to like give yourself grace, but also learn from it. Okay, what made me overeat? What made me create this this situation so I don't have that problem again? But also just give yourself grace and be like, all right, I'm learning. This is something new I've never done before. So I'm not going to be perfect. And that really helped me with consistency.
David, you bring up a very interesting point, because like when it comes to overcoming great odds, right? It's like kind of like climbing a kind of like climbing a mountain, where a lot of times you slip and you fall. And what you're describing is the thought process that it takes to basically break through that. A lot of people have overwhelming negativity in their minds, like they don't think they can do, like especially what you did. They would just be like, all excuses in the world come to them. So in your case, what do you think you would tell people of like what to do when they're like there's like an overwhelming sense of defeatism inside of them?
I think the biggest thing is to look back in the last 30, 60, 90 days and look at yourself and ask yourself, okay, what have I done right? Obviously own the fact of things you've done wrong. Like we all have things that we could have done better. But very few people will at least acknowledge where they've done well. And again, just nothing sucks the life out of you more than devaluing progress. Like I say this constantly. The amount of times I do these TikTok lives, I'll put like anywhere between 5 and 15,000 people on them. And someone will be in the chat going, I've only lost 25 pounds. And I'm like, you've only lost 25 pounds. Go pick up a 25-pound dumbbell and tell me you're not happy that's off your body. Like there's nothing that just destroys progress more than you deflating your own progress. So like that's one of the biggest things to me is don't act like you're perfect, because that's never a thing, but also own the fact when you make progress, any progress, celebrate moving in the right direction. Because I tell you what, if pain and frustration is your primary motivator, even if you make progress, you rarely keep it. Because as soon as you start feeling good, as soon as you start doing well, that emotion that kept you going, which was pain, diminishes. Because it's not painful anymore. You're like, I actually feel pretty good. And you actually start to self-sabotage because you don't feel the same way because you liked the pain. And then you wonder, and then you quit. And then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I can get painful again. And it's like, it's a self-revolving door where I've met a lot of people that use pain as their motivator. And it most of the time doesn't work, because guess what? As you create progress, it feels good. And if you're always using pain and frustration as your motivator, eventually you feel good working out and eating better, that like now you have to try to find ways to create pain again, because that's just not your motivator anymore. That's why it's like celebrating progress is such a good feeling, that it just keeps you more consistent for an extended period of time. It's like the saying of, the man who loves to walk will always outwalk the person who walks for a goal. Like finding ways to enjoy what you're doing throughout the process will make it 10 times more consistent than just like, I'm just going to white knuckle this sucker and we're just going to do it. It's like, no, that's such BS. This idea that things have to suck all the time for it to be successful. I just disagree. You can find ways to enjoy the process. You can find ways to now it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but you can find ways to enjoy the process enough to make it enjoyable that you want to stay consistent.
So David, like from what you're telling me, like a lot of people they go to the gym, right? They start off really excited and they're like full of passion and motivation, but then within 2 to 3 months they see the hardships and they're like, man, I can't do this. And by the fourth month or fifth month, they drop off because it's just too hard.
Yep.
What you're talking about is an extended consistency, like from getting from 400 pounds to 200 pounds, you have to do it over a consistent extended period of time. But during that process, there's so much negativity, where you'd be like, I can't do this anymore, or I slipped up and all that. So what would you advise people on how to keep going over a long period of time?
I say this one constantly. Stop using feelings as your primary decision making for your life. Like this is one of the biggest misconceptions, especially Western culture in America has right now, which is like your feelings are always valid. Bullshit. No, there's sometimes your feelings are not always valid. Like for example, I always make this joke. There are certain areas of life you feel a certain way, but you don't act upon it. When I hear a screaming toddler in like a public place, I want to walk up to the kid, slap him across the face and say, shush, you're acting like a child, like grow up. But I don't do that. Even though I feel like it, I don't act upon it. So there are certain areas, maybe think about it from a perspective of relationships. If anyone's who is a guy for the most part, and all of a sudden you're dating someone or you're married to someone and you see a smoke show girl walking down the street and you're like, wow, I'd love to see her naked. Now you're going, I'm not going to do it, but like obviously it's like, what would it be like to hook up with her? And it's like those thoughts happen. How do you act upon them? That's the difference. And how does that creation happen? It's through standards, disciplines, and expectations for yourself. You set standards, disciplines, and expectations for yourself. And the biggest consistent manner that's going to make the most progress in your life, both nutritionally, fitness-wise, business-wise, is not doing things based upon feelings, but doing things based upon what are your standards, what are the decisions you make in your life, what are the quality traits you want to live by. Those things you can create consistency from. Feelings change all the time. Like feelings come and go. We don't have complete control over them, but what we do have control over is decisions. What we do have control over is standards. Those are things that you can set for yourself, that no matter the situation, I tear my knee, I get in a car accident, my girlfriend leaves me, whatever happens, these are my standards. These are my expectations for myself. And regardless of external situations around me, this is what I'm holding myself accountable to, period. And that's where consistency comes from. If your decision-making is based upon the feeling of motivation, you're screwed. You're done. Because it's like taking a shower. Like you got to take a shower all the time or you smell like garbage. Same thing with motivation. It's constantly depleting. It's constantly deflating. And if you're doing everything based upon feelings, eventually it'll catch up to you. It always does.
No, I mean that's pretty true. A lot of times people feel a certain way and then they act upon it. Actually, most of the time, to be honest. But the main thing that you brought about is accountability and discipline. I think like one of the key elements of success is having accountability and discipline, being consistent, being accountable to yourself and being disciplined. But most people like they just give up after some time because they don't have a set program. But I don't know, like, is there anything else that I'm missing regarding that?
No, 100%. I mean, it's a tough one because like it's such a balance. Like I want to convey the importance of like the individual's accountability in their life, obviously, like but you also got to look at other influence as well. Like, for example, who you surround yourself with most is who you become. And so if you surround yourself with people that don't give a shit, more than likely you're going to start becoming that next person. If you surround yourself with people that care, that have standards just like you do, you're probably going to stay like that. And if you're in an environment that is very negative, the idea of you staying super positive is a lot more difficult. And so then you have to look at switching up your environment. You have to look at taking up other tools and tactics. It's super important. Like, I don't want to sit here and say, just bootstrap it, Will, like, blah, 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 like, just work harder. That plays a role, but also you got to look at the other influences in your life and figure out what you need to do. Like, if you have some toxic friends, some toxic family, some whatever environment you're in, you're like, this is just not serving me, you may have to adjust. There are certain avenues in your life that may have to adjust because it just sucks the life out of you.
Actually, David, I was going to bring that up. So a lot of people would complain and they would tell you, hey, David, okay, I want to improve, I want to make a change, but my friends and my family are basically like not supportive. And in fact, they would actually criticize me or they would try to bring me down. It's kind of like the crab bucket mentality, right?
Yep.
So what would you advise somebody like who's surrounded by people that have that crab bucket mentality?
It's super fun. I was on a client call last night where this came up. So one of my clients, she's down 60 pounds now, 55, 60 pounds. Her mother went through kidney failure like 35 because she was significantly overweight, didn't give a shit about her health, and she's been on dialysis for like 20 years. Her mother has. And she still doesn't care about her health. She doesn't do anything to change it. And here's this woman who's made the decision to transform her life. She's down 55 or 60 pounds. She's doing great. And her mother still makes these shticks at her all the time. Like she's trying to get her to eat certain food. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I have my nutritional plan. This is what I'm staying to. And then she's like, she'll just make these little jabs. And it annoys her and understandably so. I guess my biggest, there's two avenues to it. Cause like, obviously you do to a degree have to limit your time with people that suck the quality of life out of you. Now I would be careful with just the burn the bridge mentality. Like, I don't believe you have to just like shut people off completely. You may have to kind of put them at arm's length, but I don't know. I just think more abundantly than that, where it's like, oh no, you gotta get them out of your life. I'm like, maybe you just got to limit your contact. That's number one. And number two, you got to see it from their lens. I think understanding projections is super important. And I've dealt with it for myself in my journey and my weight loss journey, where there is a population that knows how normal you are, and they know you for your worst. And you're making a change that they wish they could do, but they can't muster themselves. And so what happened is, as you make progress, the people around you that know you at your worst see you start to make progress. And whether you like it or not, it hurts them because it makes them feel worse about themselves because they know how normal you are. And it makes them go, wow, I am a piece of shit because David's figuring this out and I can't. So subconsciously, these people try to knock you off your path to make you feel normal again so they can feel better about themselves. And once you understand that, you don't take it so personal. It's like, oh, Uncle Buck tried to take me off my path again. Yeah, he's dealing with shit himself. It is what it is. I feel bad for him. Hopefully, as I make progress, he'll start to inspire himself to make the changes in whatever way, shape, and form I am. But I don't make my decisions based upon what other people think of me. I make my decisions based upon what I think about myself. And I say this one constantly. Especially when it comes to obesity transformations and weight loss, if you are transforming your life for the validation of others and what your parents, what your grandparents, what your brother and sister, what your kids think, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Because you can't control that. Like, you can't control how someone decides to react to your change. You have to know you're making the change for yourself. And there may be benefits knowing that if I'm healthier, I can help my family. If I'm healthier, I can help my friends and do this stuff. But if you're doing it for the fact that, oh, well, my wife will love me more. No, like you have no control over what your wife decides to love you for more or not. So if you're changing your quality of health for the sake of someone else's opinion, good luck. Again,
But David, here's an interesting point though. A lot of people are motivated by the fact like they do things because they want the love and affection from people around them, and they
Yep.
also don't think that they're good enough, and so they have to compensate by doing all these things. But a lot of times Yeah.
It doesn't work. Well, and that's the number one thing. And like, that's why I internally go back to constantly, which is if you're not doing it for your own validation, meaning your own self-love, your own self-interest, again, that's just projecting your own issues. If you're constantly needing the love and affection and the validation of others, that means because you don't love yourself fully yet. Like that's the issue, because you're projecting it now into other people. I need X, Y, and Z's love and affection. Why? Because you're not getting enough for yourself. Like that's it. Because I can promise you, when you love the person you are, you admire and appreciate the love and affection of others. You don't need it. Like I don't like, it's like when I warn people all the time on social media, if you are building a weight loss account on social media for the validation of others, of like to get, oh, you're an inspiration, you're amazing, it's hollow, because people can give you all the accolades in the world, but if you don't give it to yourself, it means nothing. It's like for me, in obesity and where I was at 400 pounds, like think about it from the most extreme perspective. Here's a kid, I was 18 years old, and I had every single resource you could ask for on living the American dream. You'd had a dad who made $600,000 a year. You had a mom who loved you dearly. Both my parents loved me dearly. My dad used to put me on the bathroom counter, have me look in the mirror and say, David, tell that guy in the mirror you love him. I grew up with all the friends, all the love, all the support you could ever ask for. And yet at 18 years old, I want to kill myself. How is that possible? Because every single person that constantly is seeking the validation or resource of others, if you're constantly seeking that external validation, it's because it's not in here yet. And like when you truly love yourself and where you're at, all the rest of it you'll now see. But if you hate the person in the mirror, if you don't have that self-love for who you are, you're constantly seeking the validation of others, which is half the problem in the first place. And so this is something that people don't take enough time on, which is that internal relationship with who you are as an individual. And that's being congruent and consistent with your character traits, with the person you want to become, and having a good relationship with yourself. Because if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, no amount of accolades from friend, family, or colleagues matters. It doesn't.
I think it's coming down to the basic fact that most people deep down don't actually consider themselves worthy of being loved on some subconscious level.
Yep.
And so they are looking for proof outside of themselves.
Exactly.
But it's a very hard thing to do. But like this is the ultimate thing that requires you to change yourself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But David, so what was the biggest challenge that you had during this process of transformation? How did you overcome it, like on a mindset level?
Yes. So for me, honestly, the mindset to change is the number one thing, because there are neural pathways. You have habits and rituals that you have accustomed to since a young age, and now you got to change it, and it doesn't feel good. Like that's the whole thing. When you change a diet routine, when you change a fitness routine, when you change a whatever, it doesn't necessarily feel good. And so, and then within that, perfection is a myth. And so you make mistakes, and it's like, I'm going to eat better, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to do this and this, and you don't. And working on that inner dialogue was one of the biggest things for me because I was so dismissive and self-destructive with trying to make change. And so one of the biggest shifts for me, I fell in love with neuro-linguistic programming and stuff like from Tony Robbins. And when I was in my back end of my senior year at Central, I lost probably 90 pounds, 100, right around 100 pounds my senior year of college. And I used to do this little drill where I'd be in the cafeteria with different friends, and we're eating, and they're eating pizza and burgers and all this kind of stuff, and I'm eating a grilled chicken salad or whatever. And I got 4 or 5 friends around me, and I'd be eating my grilled chicken salad, and I would stand up with everyone right there. I go, David, great job. I give myself a high five, and I'd sit down and eat it. And all my friends looked at me like I was insane. But again, I needed that reassurance for myself, like actionably, like externally, that I was doing the right thing. And like that was just a huge mental shift for me, because you get caught so much in the motions that you never affirm, you never support your decision, your better actions. And I always kind of convey it like this, where think of you, like anyone listening right now that has a kid, if every time they did something wrong, every time your kid did something wrong, you smack them outside the head and go, "What are you doing?" And then every time the kid did something right, you were dead silent. What do you think the kid's going to do? The kid's going to freak out. He's like, "I don't know what's good. All I know is pain. And so just screw this. I'm going to stop trying everything because this doesn't feel good." And so it is super important to try to find ways to enjoy the process, to reaffirm what you're doing. Because if you're constantly belittling yourself in the process, it's just super difficult to find consistency.
No, I totally agree. I mean, ultimately, it's coming down to what we discussed earlier. It's like external validation versus internal validation, and knowing that you're worthy of being loved. But it's like easier said than done, right? It's
Oh
almost
yeah,
like it's a process that takes time. And I would
100%.
advise my audience to go on that journey. You know, you don't need external validation. You're good as you are, right? And so
100%.
but like speaking like so David, on a national scale, I wanted to ask you like, and you're like one of the perfect people to ask. Like America is right now going through a lot of negativity, you know, on a national scale. And from your perspective, from your whatever you learned over your 8 to 10 years regarding transformation, how do you think America should like act on a mindset level to transform from where they are in this negative state to a positive state as you have done in your life?
Yeah, this one's so funny. I talk about this all the time. Like, perspective is everything. I constantly say this. Like, again, is America perfect? Absolutely not. Like, no, there's plenty of things that we can progress on. There's plenty of things that we can do better at. But America is also in this victim Olympics perspective, where it's find the worst thing possible and exacerbate it to the norm. Like, this one small thing happened in this one small community, and act like the whole country believes the exact same thing that happened in this one very small place. And it's crazy to me, because I mean, I'm 31 years old. I'm on the back end of being what's called a millennial. And it's crazy to me how many people think that America's a bad place to live. It blows my mind. Like, I mean, and just the world in general. Like, the world is sunshine and rainbows right now. Are you kidding me? 200 years ago, we still had slaves. 400 years ago, we had the Black Plague that killed half the world. Like, I mean, you just think about like what, like a few thousand years ago, it was kings and queens and peasants. And like you just and like, I mean, obviously wealth inequality still happens, but starvation, I hate to break it to you, boys and girls, but starvation across the world is almost non-existent. It's still there. There's pockets, but it's almost non-existent. In 100 years of capitalism and progress and all of what we've done, we've almost destroyed starvation. It's still there in small pockets. Again, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but in the scheme of things, it doesn't, like, it's massively diminished. So is there plenty of progress that needs to be made in this world? Absolutely. But it's like, but again, keep things in perspective, just like what I talked about when it comes to body transformations. If all you're going to focus on is all the shitty things in the world, why try? What's the point? What's the point? If you can't even acknowledge that there are good things in America, if you can't even acknowledge that there's good things happening in the world, and it's all just woe's me, victim Olympics, there's no feeling of wanting to try. Like, because you're gonna, like, what's the point? Like, what's the point? And so my biggest takeaway on like America in particular, where like the mindset is, it's just so victim Olympics and so pessimistic that why would anyone want to try? And in the reality of things, we got a lot right. There's still some progress, but we've gotten a lot right.
No, David, I totally agree. Like you see, like right now, you know, there are like two major sides, and they're always blaming the other side, and there's like always this victim mentality going on. So from your perspective, from like what you've done with regards to like your transformation from 400 pounds to 200 pounds, how would you apply that to let's say you had to like let's say run for president or something, but you were honest and you just wanted to tell people the truth on how they should live their life, the American masses, what would it be?
Holy moly. So this is a funny one. I have a buddy of mine who so I'm pretty conservative fiscally. Socially like libertarian, fiscally conservative. Because again, it's like we can't just print money. Like there is a finite supply. Like there's just fundamentals to
I
like you
mean,
just can't
we
just
are printing money right now. It's causing inflation, and it's
trillions of dollars and you just can't do it. Like just look at it's just like the Roman Empire, why did it fall? The English, it's so habitual. Humans are so habitual in making the same mistake over and over and over again. It's wild.
but they're
um
expecting different results. And here's
it's
the
hysterical. You make a fiat currency and then it all gets diluted because of war and social welfare programs, and it does the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so like it's super interesting. My biggest thing was be super blunt, which would be like that was my like I love the bluntness of this is a tough one. I love the bluntness of Trump. I don't like everything Trump said. I love the bluntness what he said. And so like just being able to be blunt and be like, no, that's a politician statement. He's not being real. Like that's bullshit. He's just saying something to make you feel good. But when push comes to shove, he has no actionable, tangible things. This is always my biggest thing is like being objectively realistic and say, like, you know what? We need to work on homelessness. We won't cure it. It can't be cured because humans make poor decisions, and no matter how good we are as individuals, as a society, people can make whatever decisions they want. You know what? I believe in the freedom of having your own gun because we need to protect ourselves. And you know, that's an awful thing too, because people can do awful things with guns. You know what? I believe in freedom of speech, but simultaneously, it's awful that people can say really mean shit with freedom of speech. And it's being super like transparent and knowing that freedom, individual choice is clunky and it's somewhat painful because at the end of the day, people can make the wrong decision and we have laws to kind of limit that. But again, people can make the wrong decision and that's their choice. And you know what? I want to create, like, for example, for myself, I'm in the process of building out a nonprofit to help people that can't afford weight, like excess skin removal surgery, who have lost a significant amount of weight, whose insurances won't cover it. I want
that's
to
all.
build a nonprofit to help that process. Would it be nice that the government do it? Sure, but the government can't do everything. Like I just don't trust the government. I don't trust one person or one group to somehow be the purest of we have too many times in history where you give one person or one group too much power and bad shit happens. And you know what? It'd be nice if we could give all the power to one person or a small group of people and they'd make the right decisions. They just
Doesn't
don't.
happen. It never happens.
It just doesn't happen. And so instead of giving this sunshine and rainbows, the world's going to hold hands and sing kumbaya. I believe in like the approach of how can we limit the worst case scenarios? How can we promote the best case scenarios, but simultaneously limit the worst case scenarios?
So I was going to say, David, like for all the major problems that we're having on a national scale, your strategy of consistently basically improving, like like the way you said, 2 pounds a week, and then at some point it gets really better. If we utilize the same process of consistency and discipline, and then basically instead of blaming other people and everything, like we were practical and we found solutions like that, then for something that applies and like benefits all people, then that usually solves everything.
Well, and my biggest thing there would be better, like just how a lot of us have poor communication skills within ourselves. It's very self-inflicting, very diminishing, very pessimistic, and it's not constructive. It's destructive. Like there's nothing wrong with criticism, but most people's critical like tactics are destructive. They're not constructive. Like when people say, "Well, I think we should go to a flat tax," that's stupid. That's a destructive criticism. Like that doesn't actually benefit anyone. Like, explain to me why you think flat tax is bad. Give me your constructive criticism to make a better system, and let's have a conversation. But right now, it's just basically two sides, just basically one side calling one group a fascist, the other group is calling the other one a racist, and it's just destructive criticism left and right. No one is actually having a constructive conversation of how can we make the place better. And this is because oftentimes both sides want the same thing. They just have different tactics to want to like fix it. But then it's like, you're just stupid. Like, you're stupid. It's like, that doesn't do anything.
No, totally. So David, what do you think is the biggest obstacle that most Americans are facing when it comes to realizing their personal American dream, and how do you think they can overcome it from your perspective?
If you live in America, it's more personal decision making than anywhere. I mean, obviously, when you go to the rest of the world, there are truly like, I mean, for example, like you go to India, like there are truly things that hold you back from being able to scale the economic ladder. You go to Argentina, you go to some different places, there are truly things in place where you just can't do it. In America, we have some of the lowest barrier of entry to succeed in anything. It's not like, it's hard. America's a little more ruthless than most countries, like where Europe and other places are a little more about family and work balance. America's pretty ruthless. It's like, if you want to be a billionaire, you're going to sacrifice your family a little bit or whatever it is. And so, like, to me, it's like, if you live in America, you got to get rid of the victim Olympics and stop blaming every single resource.
I
It just doesn't work.
I like how you say the victim Olympics.
It's a constant battle. If it's not, it's just brutal, because it's like, if that were true, if that were true, then Oprah Winfrey would never have been a billionaire. And if that were true, then every single wealthy rich kid would be worth their weight in gold. And actually, a lot of them end up in freaking drug rehabs and dead because they've been given sunshine and rainbows their whole life. So if we're just being honest, like, let's just be honest here. If you live in America, I mean, are there still some barriers to entry that we need to work on? Absolutely. Most of them have been broken down. Like, most of them are gone. And if you want to show me one that's up there, it's like so many things. If you want to show me something we need to fix, great. Give me a tangible thing. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the credit system. I think it's pretty fucked up. I think we need to work on our credit system. But again, like, let's have a conversation. But this constant revolving door of it's finding the most unique trait about yourself and believing that's the reason why you're trapped. It's just not true.
No, totally. Yeah. It's basically, you have to stop being because, like, think about it in your own life. If you had played the victim when you were like at 400 pounds
I
and you
did.
didn't do anything to change yourself, like later on, like you would still be where you are, like at the 400-pound thing, but you decided to make that mindset shift. And I think on a national scale, we have to do the same.
It's one of my way of always saying is pandering to someone's like victim complex is the most destructive character trait you can give somebody, because at the end of the day, when you support someone's constant narrative of I can't because of blank, you rob them of all their power. Like, it's gone. Like, there is no way they can change because you are supporting their false narrative in their head. You know what and they say it's unempathetic to challenge someone on their negative narratives. Well, it's because I'm fat, it's because I'm short, it's because I'm tall, it's because I came from a poor family, it's because my family's Latino, whatever someone wants to say. The most unempathetic thing you can actually do is let them use that to stay trapped. One of the most empathetic things you can do is say, hey, I know you may think that's where you're stuck. You can change. And you can progress, because that's one of the most empowering places you can be. When you take actually 100% accountability for your life, that's not disempowering. That's the most empowering place you can be, because that means if I just change some things in my life changes. My life progresses. If you think you're a victim to your circumstances, you're here forever. Like, wherever you're at, you're there for life. And so it's actually more unempathetic to support someone's victim Olympics than challenge them on it.
I always laugh when you say victim Olympics because it's pretty true. But yeah,
it's just a constant battle.
like one thing I would note is that a lot of leaders do gain power by appealing to the victim mindset of people.
100%.
And so yeah, there that's how it happens. But
Well, it's like
yeah,
me in marketing when it comes to weight loss and stuff. It'd be so easy for me if I made marketing ploys of, I got this. I've been down 200 pounds for a decade, and there are secrets you don't know. Everyone would be hooked. But that's not the truth. The truth is most people know what calories are. The truth is most people know they shouldn't be eating ice cream every day. The truth is they know they should be moving their body more. But they don't want, no one wants to hear that. They want to hear there's something hidden that the government's hiding in our water. Like everyone wants to find the secret chemical that's holding them back, when in reality it's, you know what, you eat too many calories, you sit too much, and you have no fitness routine at all, and you don't get quality sleep. Like that's the truth. And it's like no one wants to hear that. They want to know there's something in our milk.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's basically, yeah, most people want the shortcut, but what can you say? Like they don't want to hear the truth that change requires a lot of effort.
Yeah,
You
it's
don't
the
want to hear that.
carbs. It's
But
carbs. It's all the carbs' fault.
yeah. But David, can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about ALG Accountability Life Group and also your podcast?
Yes. So Accountable Life Group, ALG for short, was started a little over 2 years ago with my business partner, John. John's lost 300 pounds himself. And we were just in this position where we both really wanted to make an impact on truly obesity transformation. So I hate to break it, like I don't really work with people that need to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds. Like, hey, I'm a new mom and I need to help losing 25 pounds. I'm like, I mean, obviously I'll give you some tips, but that's not where like I find passion. And so ALG is truly a group of people that if you need to lose over 100 pounds, learning, like building a support system, education, and a way to help you transform your entire lifestyle to live a healthier and happier life. That's what accountable ALG is for, Accountable Life Group, building that accountability in a group setting. And then we have a podcast where we talk about nutrition, fitness, all the kind of stuff. We bring on different guests that have lost over 100 pounds themselves and been doing a really good job. We're pushing on 100 episodes now. So we're about to hit 100 episodes. We've had like 30 people on the podcast that have lost over 100 pounds. So it's a really cool vibe for anyone. If you struggled with weight, you're going to get a lot of different perspectives on different experiences of obesity and living in an overweight life, and the quality changes and the life changes of doing that. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. I would definitely recommend my audience, like anybody that wants to lose a lot of weight and also like have mindset tips to like definitely take a look into that, you know?
I appreciate that.
So David, I know you wrote this book called Drop the Baggage. Can you tell me and the audience a little bit more about the premise of how you wrote the book and what got you started on that book?
Absolutely. So I published it about 4 years ago now, 4.5. So it's called Drop the Baggage: From Suicidal Obesity to a Life of Health and Happiness. And it's basically broken into thirds. The first third of the book is my story. So from childhood obesity, my depression, suicidal thoughts, all this kind of stuff, and the progress and transformation into changing my life. The second third of the book is on the mindset shift for change, learning how to like reevaluate, like neurolinguistic programming, talking about how to rewire neural pathways, talking about belief systems, all that kind of stuff. And then the final third of the book is on nutrition. I really don't even really get into fitness because it's such a small portion of weight loss success. It's so funny. So many people spend so much time in the gym when they should spend way more time on how am I eating. Like it should be 90% nutrition, 10% fitness, but most people go 90% fitness and 10% nutrition. And so the last third's on nutrition. And to be honest, I need to rewrite the book because there are like the last third of the book is on nutrition, and I use peer-reviewed literature to support my different conclusions. But even in 5 years, my experience in reading the peer-reviewed literature and getting more concise with the science, there are things in there that I actually have that I've learned are not necessarily true. And so I gotta write a new book. But the last third is the fundamentals to the nutritional side of things.
That is awesome. Like, yeah, I think you're right about that. Most people are more into like lifting weights and all of that, and less into what they're eating. So
Exactly. And they wonder why I'm working out, I'm running, I'm doing all this hard work. I'm my muscles are sore, but I'm not losing any weight. And it's like cuz honestly, weight loss is 90% nutrition and 10% fitness. It really is.
yeah, that is awesome. So David, how can our audience get to know more about your work and connect with you?
So my social media is my main thing. So TikTok, Instagram is my main go-to. So all my social media handles are fit_drock. That's like the main place you can get a hold of me. I have like just over 100,000 followers on TikTok. I have like 40K something on Instagram. So those are my two main platforms.
Awesome. David, I'm really honored to have you on this show. And I would like you're an extraordinary American. What you've achieved is truly extraordinary. Where most people would have just given up, you managed to like pull something truly like miraculous, I would say. But we know that it's not a miracle. It's a lot of hard work, effort, and consistency. And I'm sure like a lot of my audience will be inspired to do the same in their own goals as well.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate that.
I would hope that you come back to the show at a later time. Uh,
Absolutely. This was
yeah,
this was a fun this is a fun episode.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I want to conclude this show by telling my fellow extraordinary Americans that look, there's an extraordinary within each and every one of us. It's our duty to awaken it and unleash it. Until next time, bye for now.
Hey there, everyone. Thank you for watching Extraordinary America. If you like what you see, please do subscribe to our podcast and share it with others. Remember that the best investment that you can make in your lifetime is in your own financial education, for it is knowledge that truly sets you free. Also remember that your purchasing power is being diluted through inflation, and then the practical thing to do is to protect the loss of your purchasing power by investing in precious metals or the right cryptocurrencies. Also, never forget that you are an extraordinary American. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.